All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Fritsch, and I'm joined by Kirby Hicks. We're from Confo. We're going to talk today about using Smartsheet and Power BI for seamless collaboration in the fab. And this is actually part two of a two-part series that we did. And in July, we talked about the 5 fab ramp secrets. And what we're going to talk about today applies very much to capital tool installations in the semiconductor industry, but it really applies to any organization that wants to collaborate better and harness the power of Smartsheet in conjunction with Power BI. So we'll jump into it and we'll go from here. All right, so a little bit about Confo. We were founded in 2002. We're really deep inside semiconductors, especially tool installations and fab ramps. We've been using Smartsheet since 2013, but you can see that we've done and been involved with thousands of capital tool installations. We've worked with virtually every capital equipment maker, current and past, and we've done several fab and factory ramps of construction. You can see a sampling of our clients there at the bottom. And really what we're all about, our mission is to provide consulting and support services to improve operational and project performance. Again, primary focus is on the semiconductor industry and the semiconductor supply chain, but we've done a lot of other work in software, manufacturing, and construction. You can see kind of the things that we'll do for you there below. Today, we're going to focus in on what we call smart solutions, and that's using Smartsheet and Power BI to really bring you great results, whether it's a fab ramp up or whether it's anything else in the company. To the right there, I've circled Clearview Field Install software. We do have a point solution suite that incorporates Smartsheet and Power BI and a few other things that is created solely for fab installations and fab ramps. But today we're going to talk about using Smartsheet and Power BI and using those in conjunction with your current systems. Really talking about how we can replace Excel and lots of email and lots of meetings to do a great job of factory collaboration. So our focus today really is on what we're calling seamless tool installs. And these are recent quotes from an actual fab. And you can see at the top the various stakeholders and everybody that's really essential to have a successful tool installation and to have a successful fab ramp. And so recently we did a demonstration, kind of a pilot project to go through the 5 secrets. And as we talked with folks, these were the comments of kind of what they deal with today. So I'm going to be quiet for just a second and I'll let you read those. And then if anybody is surprised by what they see, give a shout out. And if not, I'll proceed to the next slide. So I'll give it about 20 more seconds here. And you can always chime in with the chat as well. And thank you again for the new folks that have joined. Again, this session is being recorded. All right, so really what this tells you is that the coordination and the collaboration that happens today on the factory floor, there's a lot of room for improvement. And that's what we're going to show you as a way to get there very quickly. So when we talk about a seamless tool install, what do we mean? And again, this is a slide from the July event that talked about this in great detail. But we're talking about everyone being on the same sheet of music, everyone seeing the status in real time, and everyone agreeing with and saying, yeah, I believe that status. And in this situation, really, it's taking the fab owner, the capital equipment maker, the trades, and the OEMs and getting them all on that same sheet of music. And I think one of our former clients, a fab ramp manager, really said it best when he looked at this approach. He said, now we don't have to sit around the table and lie to each other, right? Because we can see the real status and everybody can agree on it. And then we can spend less time arguing about what the heck is happening and more time doing something about it. So with the processes that we're going to show you and really what we're enabling now with Smartsheet and Power BI, there's really 5 key secrets, and maybe they're not so much of a secret, but 5 key things that are really important for tool installs and for ramp success. You want to automate your status updates. You want to make good communication happen. Use operational metrics rather than financial metrics. That's really important. Establish good accountability, and that's going to eliminate finger pointing. And then use the approach of performance planned and performance managed. And we're going to show you how we use Smartsheet in combination with Power BI to make all of those things happen. Let me pause there. Any questions on slides to date? Great.
Sorry.
Yes.
There was a question I saw in the chat and wanted to ask as well. Okay. What does the CEM acronym stand for?
I'm sorry. That is Capital Equipment Manufacturer. So that's folks like Applied Materials, Tokyo Electron, etc. They're the ones that are making the machines that make the computer chips.
Great, thank you.
Great question. And Kirby, thanks for monitoring the chat.
You're welcome.
So, what we're talking about here in this approach is, not going in and ripping out kind of the systems that you've got running your fab and collaborating in the company, but rather replacing some of that ad hoc stuff going on in Excel, probably a lot of emails, probably a lot of meetings. And what I love about Smartsheet is it's very easy to go in and take out that Excel, replace it with Smartsheet. And my favorite saying is, I say it tastes like Excel, but it's better. And it also tastes like Project, but it's better. And we're going to show you a little bit about that as we show you what we do in the fabs. But we have previous sessions where we deep dive into all the functionality of Smartsheet. So we won't do that today. And we're happy to, after this session, get with you offline and take you through a real in-depth review of the functionality. But just a few quick highlights before we start showing you the real deal is what I've found and what my clients love working with Smartsheet is the familiarity, because the interface looks like Excel in many ways. So you can get started very easily, and if you know how to navigate yourself around Excel, you can navigate yourself around the grid view of Smartsheet. That's perfect for ease of adoption. And beyond that, you've got some capability that's really fantastic. So we have column types that are distinct, so you can have things that ensure data quality. You have the ability to do some system generated columns so that you can really keep track of things. You have the ability to have attachments and conversations around each element in there, each row. And you've got the ability to do things like highlight things that changed or do conditional formatting. And then there's a whole bunch of automations that you can take advantage of. So just take my word for it. And if you want to see it after the fact, I'll deep dive. But I wanted to give you a sense of kind of, as you're looking at it, you'll go, okay, that kind of looks like Excel. What's the big deal? The big deal is the additional power that we can harness and the transparency that it brings. So let me pause there and ask for any questions. And I'll tell you that as I'm talking, I'm having difficulty in the chat. So forgive me if I don't see one, or forgive me if I stumble with the chat back and forth. Any questions before I go forward? All right, great, thank you. And then one of the things to keep in mind, and one of the things that we do is that using Smartsheet, we're talking today about how you can use it in the factory, but we use it in a lot of different departments with a lot of different functions across the company. And when you talk about collaboration, that really has a synergistic effect. And so some of the things that we've done with it and some of the things that you can do with it are shown here. But I'm not gonna go into detail on them. I just want you to be aware. And really what you're here for is seeing it live. So let's go ahead and see it in action and talk about these secrets and these principles in a live situation on the factory floor. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Kirby, who's going to share.
So do you want me to share?
Kirby's going to share. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did, I took, do you want to know what I did or the end result?
Natalia,
Okay. So what I did, I took the names, alias, and org from nominations entry form, then the same alias.
Natalia? Hello?
Hey, Natalia, Kirby's going to walk through the dashboard and talk to that. And then if we have a deeper dive on the Power BI, we'll grab you for that. But for this section, we're gonna talk about the dashboard and the control tower first. Go ahead, Kirby.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks both to Natalia and Mike for giving me this opportunity to show you a little bit of the high level of what to you will be a little bit of proof of concept. I've taken some pieces from our work, past and present, in order to try to paint that picture. You know, Mike, I'd finish his sentence about Excel and Smartsheet being better than Excel and Project by just saying certainly better for collaboration and aggregation of information and keeping all of it together. So what we've found is that a lot of good stuff happens in Excel, but it stays where it's at, and the data integrity is hard to maintain. Project, a lot of good stuff happens in Project, but it's disconnected from the rest of the data that people are maintaining many times. And what we try to do is keep everything current and in a collaboration environment where it's continuously improved. Before I get started, can everybody hear me okay? Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. First key point. This is example data. Some of it you'll see 2019 dates on it. That's because we just grabbed stuff from the past. It's still relevant how the functionality works, and yet it's disconnected from anybody's sensitive information. There is real data in here. Some of it's current real data in sanitized. So that allows you to better comprehend the validity of what we're showing you, because if you anchor it in some things that we all know, then it makes more sense to you, or most of us know. And if you have any questions about anything that I start presenting, please ask them in the chat. Hopefully Mike can grab them, or just ask me and I'll answer your questions. Like most software platforms today that are cloud enabled, Smartsheet is mobile. You can use it on just about any device. We've not found a situation where it won't scale to the device that you're using, and it can be optimized for those devices. I'm not going to cover that here today, but it is a critical aspect of what I'm going to show you, in that individuals throughout your organization, down to the Gemba and the Wafer Fab, up to the C-suite, can look at information on their handheld device, and they can update that information, and everybody gets the benefit of those updates. Item 3, you can see that at the top of the screen. It may be a little small for you. So top 5 secrets really aren't a secret, by the way. It's really lean principles translated into aspects of what we do that we think embodies the spirit of lean, and we'll close with that when we're done here. So on the demo dashboard, I'd like to talk about three main things to start with. We're going to start with output from basically master schedules that people use to track their activities that used to be in Excel that are now in Smartsheet. And everything you see here comes just from that. We can also augment what you see here with more powerful tools that we pull data from, and we can bring in information from other sources to update these master schedules. But I'll talk about that at the end. So at the top picture I'm showing you, and I know it's a little small, but what we're interested in is, what is the work that we're going to do? What is the work in progress, and how are we doing? And for completed work, how did we do? And sometimes we don't look at that one enough with information that helps us sort out what we can do to do better in the future, the continuous improvement piece. Okay, so, I think I'll start with the top right chart. And the interesting thing, and Natalia can answer more questions about this one if you have questions, but she is our expert, very high-level expert on Power BI. And I can tell you that what we're doing here is cutting edge, and it's leadership in the industry. It's in a leadership position in the industry relative to how this is connected directly to Smartsheet, and it remains refreshed and valid at all times. And so I'm going to make that widget bigger. And what I'm going to talk about is, hang on, switch over here. Okay. I'm going to tell you what you're seeing in this picture. So the data from 69 tools in a small sample set in this picture, and these tools go across multiple customers, not just one or two, is looking at information about actual performance relative to your baseline plan. What you see on the left-hand side, let's just look at Phoenix on the left-hand side, are fake tool IDs. Every row is a tool that was installed in a wafer fab. And when you plan to put the tool in the wafer fab, you have a date you plan to put it in. And the green bar on that first one says we were 14 days early in moving that tool into the wafer fab. A red bar, on the other hand, down below it is we were 28 days behind our original plan to move that tool into the wafer fab. The next step, key step in the install, is called safety level 1. And likewise, what you see there is, how many days ahead or behind schedule for safety level 1, then safety level 2. Oddly, I'm noticing that I don't see the bars for safety level 1. I see it on the right side, not the left side, but you get the idea. Same for safety level 2, and then for actually finishing the qualification of the tool and handing it off to the customer. The reason I'm showing two sides of this is that, while we were working with this customer, they said that, gosh, it would be great to compare performance between our high-volume manufacturing site and our development site. The development site's on the right, the high-volume's on the left, and when you look at it, you don't immediately see that potentially the high-volume site is doing a better job hitting their dates than the development site, which is what you would expect. So we'd want to look at this at another level of detail. And what I asked Natalia to do is I said, look, I would like to use Power BI and its AI capability to go and take a look at that for me. And so she created a decomposition that we had populated the right side first, but basically of the 69 tools, there are 200 delay comments out of the Smartsheet environment where they were logged. And average days to supplier qual finish performance of all of those tools was 5 days ahead of schedule. If we look at Plan A in Phoenix, there were 27 tools, and there were 28 delay comments. Well, that still doesn't tell me a whole lot. I can tell you this, I can drill down to the tool level or the tool type, but we're not going to do that here today. That starts telling you something. We thought, well, how about let's let the system look at the comments and give us a Pareto of the issues that it found. We did that, she did that, and the AI capability, I have to tell you, has to be taught a little bit to get it started, and it does some of its own learning, but initially, what we see is we put it in a word cloud rather than a Pareto just to make it a little less specific to this use case or this set of tools that we're going to be looking at. But you can see a word cloud, and if you hover over the word cloud, it'll tell you how many times that word came up in the comments, the delay comments. And so, you know, pumps 26 times, customer 78 times, pump 21 times. So AI needs to figure out that pumps and pump are the same thing. But you get the idea, a bit of a proof of concept. So if we go and we look at that site specifically, the word cloud shrinks, and we need to teach the AI that, oh, by the way, every time they say the customer this or the customer that, don't count the customer as an issue. But you can see the direction we're going here. And we find this to be more informative than just looking at a comparison chart of actual versus baseline plan. If you go and you look at the high volume, okay, so we see at the bottom of that particular site, and we haven't sanitized the data for any flyers or anything that might be potentially driving the data erroneously, but of course that's what this is for. On average, 4 days behind schedule to supplier qual finish. If you go to high volume, 7 days ahead of schedule. So a delta between the two sites of 11 days in performance. 11 days is a pretty significant amount for the same tool type from one fab to another. So that's good news. Maybe you expected it to be more, maybe you expected it to be less, but you can start using this information to query and understand your data better. I'll pause there. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Okay. We could have also put up other dashboards that we use, some that show us the detailed status and performance metrics for every tool in a wafer fab with bar charts and so on. But I really wanted to show you that there's some stuff coming from Power BI with artificial intelligence that you can begin to teach to help you understand your data. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the work in progress. Now this widget on this Smartsheet dashboard is an actual Smartsheet widget. It is simply a report that we've embedded in the dashboard. Let me explain that report to you for a second. So we have the color-coded entity tool IDs on the left, and that's conditional formatting. So if it's in Phoenix, it's orange. If it's in Portland, it's blue. If it's in Manassas, it's light green. Whatever color you want for visual indicators to help you understand your own information. And that can be customized down to the user level, and it doesn't affect the validity of the information in Smartsheet. The next column is total float. That's how many days ahead or behind you are on that tool that's in flight. And if there's an A behind a date, that means it has been actualized. That's interesting, Kirby, but look, the first two tools haven't even started and they're 11 days behind schedule. What does that mean? Well, that means that the committed durations for completing that install that are in your template are longer than the milestone target date for supplier qual finish provided to you by your customer. So you're going to start that project 11 days behind schedule according to your plan. That's meaningful information. And that all comes from the same source as the Power BI data, the master schedule, which I'll get to in just a minute. Below that, we show the future work. So when we're working with our customer, they tend to like to look at what's in flight the most, a little less about how they did, but they're still very interested in what's coming. And they can see in Smartsheet from this widget, which is a Smartsheet widget, the Gantt view of how their tools are stacking down here on the right-hand side. What are the clients and where are they located? You can also see, if you've populated in your master schedule, which I've cleaned out, who the lead engineer is. So you can communicate with that lead engineer if you happen to be a manager. If you're a lead engineer, then you would set this up a little different with the same data and look at who you have assigned to those tools. So I'm assigned as the lead engineer, and Mike Fritch is the lead engineer of the tool coming up real soon, so we better get this. Any questions about what I've shown you so far?
Hey, Kirby, just I want to add a couple of comments on the Smartsheet functionality. So these looks, when we use reports in Smartsheet, that is taking a view into the data in a sheet, and it's two-way activity, so that you can look at a report that is filtered and sorted in a way that is useful for you or useful for a particular stakeholder. And when changes are made to that report with the proper authorization, so you've got to have the right privileges to edit, then in real time, the base sheet is updated. And so that's one of the powers when we do this, that different folks in different roles actually have slightly different looking control towers or dashboards, because we're only going to raise the relevant information to them. And then also to reiterate, you can look at Smartsheet from a grid view, which is like Excel, or a Gantt view like Project, and Kirby's showing you a Gantt view there. Thanks.
Oh, no, that's good, Mike. And there's several other views too that are useful depending on what you're working on. So you mentioned that.
Can I ask where these dates are coming from? Is Smartsheet doing the data forward pass and backwards pass, or are these dates being imported from Project or P6 or somewhere?
Phil, that's a really good question. The way I would answer that, based on, depends on where you are as a company. Okay, because we have the ability, and we've used it to update dates in the field directly in Smartsheet. And we also, as you probably know, have more advanced capabilities that update dates in a project environment, and then those are imported into Smartsheet. So depends on your level of sophistication, where you engage with this process, but at whatever level you're at, it will work. And let me show you the master schedule here. Okay, so I've hidden a lot of columns in the master schedule, Phil, and because there's calculations, there's other information in there that came from a actual customer master schedule that I didn't completely clear out, so I prefer not to show that. And then I cut out I selected a filtered subset of the tools that are in that master schedule. This is old data. I did that on purpose because it's really worthless data, but it was live at one point in time, so it's a snapshot in history. What you're looking at here are the key dates that can be used to produce the information that we were just looking at as far as summary data. In Smartsheet, when we begin an install fill, we will have baseline dates. You see those columns here. And then everything that happens is compared against baseline in the field. If somebody says, oh, we did this one and checked it, traditional formatting highlights it as green, so you have a visual picture of what's going on. Typically what you see is everything is green at the top with, at an angle going down, showing the newer ones just starting and so on. But again, this is just example data. And so as you actualize these, then they're actualized in the system, and the conditional, not conditional, the equations that we have in the sheet will then go ahead and give you your performance compared to baseline numbers at each milestone. So that's the most simple way to do it. As you know, we actually pull in a lot of granularity that allows us, for instance, to look well inside of these dates and do some cool things like answer questions. How many activities get completed in safety level 1 before that milestone has been signed off and finished? And you'll find that an awful lot of them get done before power on. Why is that useful? Well, the way we're structuring our work says you got to wait till the power's on, but our people are smart enough to know, well, you can do these other things without power, might as well do them. Well, why don't we go ahead and acknowledge that and make it part of how we fast track tools? So there's a lot you can learn from the data at any level. At the most basic, this is what you would see. And the reason I filtered it down to just this small set is that's kind of what you would want to see on your phone if you're going to update your tool. Let's say you're a tool lead, you would see maybe 2 tools in here that you have responsibility for at once with some overlap. And you can go through and just check off the items on your phone that apply to you. Maybe you own ABC 790 and TCV 078, and you just start updating those. That information is immediately available in here. If you come in and you say, this date is really going to be this date, and we save it, then everybody in the system sees that in their metrics, and they see it in their spreadsheet, and if they are really close to where the rubber meets the road, they can turn on the highlighter and see those things that have just changed recently in the hour, in the next day, whatever it may be. And that audit trail is critical and has been critical for us because you're able to see who did the updates and when, and you can go talk to those people. Very difficult to do that in Excel. I'm not saying it's impossible, but rolling all of this up and making it available in Excel becomes a full-time job for a lot of people, or at least 20% of their time per week keeping track of what's going on. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Maybe for everybody, but again, a lot of functionality here that we won't spend time on right now, but can do that, you know, if you want to talk to us offline, as Mike said earlier, before we got started. So what we're doing here is we are really focusing on what were those, eliminate the finger pointing with good accountability, and use performance planned and managed. Now, in this view, you have great accountability because you always know where the updates are coming from. You have clear visibility of the first 3 items. So where are the status updates coming from? Well, some of them are automated. You make good communications happen because you can. Everybody is looking at the same sheet of music, like Mike said with his diagram at the beginning. And these are operational metrics. There's no financial data in this environment. Now, we're involved with some companies that are working to put some of this capability into their financial data. We perceive some opportunities and issues there, and we look forward to seeing how that goes. But fundamentally, we like to stay in this environment. So that's really all I had, Mike. I would just summarize with these last takeaways. All of this information can be created just by replacing the typical Excel environment in your operation used to keep track of what's going on with Smartsheet. And the change management, part of that is eased a bit. It's still difficult. People never like to change what they're doing, especially if they're an Excel maestro and they built some really cool macros and what have you. But when you get into this environment, everybody benefits. The Power BI capability to connect directly to Smartsheet that Smartsheet has enabled, and they're continuously improving, by the way. We get more and more capability. I can hardly keep up with them. It gives you that real-time performance tracking and drill-down analysis. Whether you're looking at the chart that I had at the upper right, and you want to say, let me look at what that looked like last week for tools in flight, so I can see, gosh, I've got an epidemic of issues going on or not, and get on top of it. You know, or whether it's simply being able to highlight what's changed in your spreadsheet based on automatic updates. Saves people a lot of time, and it eliminates opportunities for error introduced by humans. You know, the automatic updates to the field resources I just mentioned is important. But you know, their updates flowing back up to the central operations arena are equally as important, because many times that's where the best information is from, and I'd say most of the time. And the audit trail is key to keeping it straight. And the last bullet really is pointing at me, because I've done a lot of this. The more users work together as a team in this kind of environment, the more accurate the information becomes. Little issues with a date get picked up by people who have a real stake in that game, and they will let you know. They'll say, hey, no, you got that date wrong. Or, gosh, did you really mean to overwrite 5 tools in this sheet? I see you're working on that. Well, I did that one time. And the good news was the customer, who was a manager, fairly senior guy, spotted it within 30 minutes of it happening. That means they're really using these tools, not like some tools you try to roll out to your organization. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry about that. I was doing this. I didn't realize I did that. I'll fix it. And because of the audit trail, I was able to switch it right back to where it was. These short cycle feedback loops in communication, the elimination of wasted human effort, keeping all of this up to date, trying to figure out what is the best information, and the ability to drive continuous improvement is the essence of a lean operation. And I think Mike's going to summarize some of that now, or after anybody asks me any questions they may want to ask about this. Everybody good?
Okay.
All right. Well, Mike, I'll hand it back to you, and you can wrap this up and you know, see if there's anybody that wants to follow up with us offline.
Great. All right. I want to make sure my screen is in fact sharing. Are you seeing my slide?
I am.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, you saw a small representative sample of using this in action. Great for field operations, but great for a lot of other things, as you can see in this slide. And you know, one of the things that Kirby really hit home there at the end is what we're using Smartsheet and Power BI for in this case is really to apply these lean principles, right? And the top 5 secrets, the BKMs, maybe not so secret to Kirby's point, really, you know, they are supportive and in line with the principles of lean, you know, of having teamwork, communication, good use of resources, elimination of waste, and always doing continuous improvement. And you can see that the way that we laid out that dashboard and the real-time information really reinforces that, as we can see, you know, what is going on now, what's the work in process, how did we do against what we had planned to do, and you know what's coming up next. And so just having that continuous feedback loop is really well enabled and supported by this approach and by Smartsheet with Power BI. You know, the lean production versus mass production, there's a lot of benefits. And so, you know, applying some of this and enabling a lean approach to your tool installs, to your wafer fab, or to any other operation in your organization can really yield some significant benefits. And in our opinion, Smartsheet makes an easy vehicle to make those things happen. So we're as you can tell, we're big fans and enthusiastic about it. And you know, from the standpoint of tool installations and from wafer fab operations, it really works. You know, on the left is the criteria that we had to do a 4-week demonstration project, and you can kind of see just each of those in a recent fab. Check, check, check. And then on the right is where we applied those principles over time in a lot of different wafer fabs and a lot of different installation things, and frankly did it back prior to having the power of Smartsheet and the power of Power BI, and it was a lot more work to make this stuff happen. So with the tools that we have today, it makes it easier to get some of those great results and put them in place a little more quickly. So that's really it. That's what we wanted to cover today. And if you're ready to do some improvements now, we'd love to hear from you. Again, we provide consulting and support services to improve your operations. If you'd like to learn more about any one of these topics, if you want to schedule a session with me to talk about it, you can click on that link. You can email me, you can call or text me, and I will put this information in the LinkedIn event chat so you can get to it easily. And we will make this recording and this presentation available after the session. So we've got a little bit of time left. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to stop the recording.